Welcome to Saturday Morning Trek, just one of many podcasts on Trek FM. If you'd like to help keep Star Trek discussion coming your way each day, consider becoming a network patron through Patreon. Visit patreon.com/trekfm and find out how you can become part of the team. That's patreon.com/trekfm.
This is D.C. Fontana. You're listening to Trek FM.
It's set now for action and adventure. Future's here for us to see. It's 2200 AD.
Their mission, to fight injustice, to right that which is wrong, and
to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Welcome to Saturday Morning Trek. Join us at Trek FM as we harken back to the days of wood panel dens, console televisions, and Adam's obsession with bear creatures. I'm Aaron Harvey.
I'm Adam Drosin.
And today we are going to talk about Mud's passion.
Get passionate.
Friend Kirk. Oh no, that's the wrong one.
The passions of Mega Smud.
Yeah, so this is our basic, third Mud? I think it's the third Mud episode.
It's all one long mud, if you ask me.
And it's also very much a product of its time. It's would not be made today, I don't think. Well, this one might be, but just done slightly differently.
Yeah, it's a character that the woke millennials would call problematic.
Yes, definitely. Much like in the last episode we reviewed the plantation that McCoy was dreaming about, but they didn't really point that out. That it was a plantation built by slaves. So we'll summarize what the episode's about, and then we'll dive into discussion.
Dive into some mud.
Before we dive into the synopsis of this week's episode, just a reminder to our audience that the animated series Blu-ray will be available November 15th, and you can pre-order that now on Amazon. This set will include all 22 episodes presented in 1080p HD across 4 different discs, with commentaries and text commentaries on select episodes, as well as bonus features that were originally created for the DVD release in 2006. But new to the set are 22 poster-style cards, one for each episode, created by the artist Juan Ortiz. We'll fully review the Blu-ray once we get it, and we'll put that on Saturday Morning Trek. Okay, let's throw some mud. The Enterprise has come to the Arcadian system to locate an old friend, Harcourt Harry Fenton Mudd. Their mission is to corral Mudd for fraud, illegal drug manufacturing, and swindling. On the planet Motherlode, Mudd attempts to sell heavy metal miners a magical love potion guaranteed to make members of the opposite sex fall in love with one touch. Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock take Mudd into custody before the swindled miners can retaliate. On the Enterprise, Mudd is put into the brig, but he takes advantage of Nurse Chapel's obvious affection for Mr. Spock by offering her the love potion for free. Chapel doesn't believe the potion works, but she'll try it for scientific curiosity. She does, and it doesn't appear to work, but in reality, it just takes longer to break through to Spock's Vulcan metabolism. Mudd escapes after faking her ID badge and takes Nurse Chapel hostage. They depart the ship on a heavy shuttle, but not before accidentally releasing multiple crystals of his love potion into the ship's air duct. As Kirk and Spock beam down to an arid planet to rescue Chapel from Mudd, they're unaware that the crew of the Enterprise has been affected by the love potion. On the bridge, as Lieutenant Eric strums love songs on his green lute, Mr. Spock and Lieutenant Emrys make a love connection. Below, Kirk and Spock create slash fiction by expressing their deep friendship for each other, but their friendship must go unrequited as the quartet is imperiled by 2 huge rock creatures. And even as they fight the side effects of the love potion, Kirk and the others find a way to stay alive. On the Enterprise, the potion has dissipated, leading to a period where the crews intensely dislike each other. And Mudd, out of ploys to free himself, begins a long confession. Cue the 70s freeze frame. All right, so this episode was first aired on November 10th, 1973. We're eking ever closer to 1974. And it was written by Stephen Kandel, who also wrote the first 2 Mudd episodes. He also wrote on Sea Hunt, Batman, Spy, Mod Squad.
Great show.
Yes. Wonder Woman, Bionic Woman, Hawaii Five-0, MacGyver, The Magician, which Larry Brody from the Magics of Megas 2 also wrote for, and later he will write the animated series episode The Jihad. But my favorite thing that he wrote was 1979's Supertrain. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
I just appreciate the fact that whenever it's like one of these random 70s writers, my favorite thing that such and such wrote is some insane thing that no one except for you and maybe a half dozen other people remember. I think it's great.
I believe it's actually on DVD now.
Okay.
So someone besides me and 10 other people probably did.
Well, you could find Aaron at Supertrain Con.
Oh boy, that would be... No, I was 9, so my memory of it was that it's a cool super train, and that was about it. The series took place on said super train, which was a nuclear-powered bullet train, which that seems safe, equipped with all the amenities of like a cruise ship. It had swimming pools, shopping centers, and it was so big that it had to run on a large, very broad gauge track. And one of the reasons I remember it is they talked about the special effects in Starlog, and that was kind of a big thing. The show ran on NBC from February 7th to May 5th, 1979. There was 9 episodes, including the 2-hour pilot. So it was basically Love Boat on a train. And I think somebody figured out that today it would be even slower than the Acela train that runs like up and down the East Coast or something. So for a super bullet train, it was pretty slow. But it stopped at a lot of places, too. So it took 36 hours to get across country.
You had me at Supertrain. Like, you didn't have to keep selling me. I'm sold.
Buy the Supertrain. Yes. So, yeah, that was fun. But, yeah, so that was his writing career. I'm sure he's had more than... I believe that the MacGyver is kind of where it sort of stopped.
However, you know I'm a big train fan. I never, however, have been on a train that cost $6 million, at least not to my knowledge I haven't. But there is a super train coming. Why, there it is. And Jack Perkins is going to be along in this half hour to tell us all about the super train that hits NBC tonight, and we hope it's a hit.
And NBC hopes it stays on the tracks. There's a lot of money invested in that one. $6 million may be the low side of the budget, it turns out.
Good morning from the MGM lot here in Los Angeles. Usually when we do a piece about a new television program going on the air, we come and interview the star of it. Well, we can't do that in this case because, as many critics have said, the star of this new show is a train.
Supertrain is ready to depart.
It's not even a real train, though a lot of money has been spent to make it look real. It exists only here on the sound stages at MGM, where set designers build it at enormous cost. Ned Parsons, in charge of designing and building what is easily the most expensive set ever made for a TV program. To build this elaborate mock-up, a train going nowhere, 250 workers labored in shifts around the clock for 3 months. All that manpower and overtime got to be frightfully expensive. How expensive? Well, reportedly at least $5 million just to build the set. The program, if it doesn't work, could be canceled after 13 weeks.
Okay, that ends our Saturday morning Supertrain episode, and now we return to our Mud's Passion episode. So let's talk a little bit about the voices. We don't have James Doohan doing Harry Mudd, which is great. We actually have Roger Carmel coming back to do Harry Mudd. We have Nichelle Nichols doing the female Ursanoid miner. Those are sort of these bear-like creatures, and we'll talk about those later. The male miner was James Doohan. Laura, which is the hypnoid
Yeah, that was
lizard.
awesome. Whatever that thing was crazy.
That's played by Majel Barrett, and the human miner was James Doohan. So, though we did get one new voice, we had the standard shuffling of the 3 people, basically, to do the other ones. So what did you think of this episode?
It's okay. I'm not a huge fan of the Mud episodes. They're fine. Like, it's not one of my favorites to go to rewatch, but if it's on, I'll watch it. There's stuff that I thought was cool. definitely a big fan of the Ursanoids. Already working on my Ursanoid cosplay. I'm not, but I really should. That was cool. That Hypnoid, that was really great.
Yeah, it was like a lizard kind of creature.
Yeah, and he's like, and Spock was just so matter of fact. He's like, "You idiots! Can't you tell a Hypnoid when it's like such a basic projector?" It was great.
Yeah.
And there's one real quick cutaway that cracked me up where you know what I'm talking about?
It's my favorite, I think, of all of the animated series.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, so, well, we're kind of jumping ahead in the plot, but when they're, trying to get off this planet, it's like, Kirk is like, Kirk to transporter room, beam us up. And it's just, da-da-da-da-da. It's the transporter operator and some ensign dancing.
But dancing, like, really fast.
Yeah, and they're dancing. But it's like a jazzy version of the animated series intro.
Transporter room, emergency beam up now. They're not responding.
It was a really great proto-Family Guy kind of cutaway.
Yes.
Between that and the Ursanoids and the Hypnoid, I feel like this places it. Like, I can't remember. It was maybe John Ford, one of those famous legendary directors, maybe Capra. I don't remember who said it, but all you need for a movie is 3 really good scenes and some filler. And I feel like those are my 3 moments, and the rest is just filler. So I'm like, yeah, Mud's Passion, it's all right.
Well, I'll tell you one of my favorite moments in there. Then is when Nurse Chapel literally throws herself at Spock.
Yeah. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, she's been doing it figuratively all these years, and now she's just like, "Woo, I fell."
And his first reaction is like, "Are you sick?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?"
What's wrong with you? There's some. I don't know if it was intentional, but there's some great comedy in here. It's just like,
I imagine it's intentional.
It has,
I mean,
yeah,
the
Mud is a funny.
The Mud episodes
yeah.
are always, blatantly
That's
humorous.
True.
So it's just.
She falls very similarly to when they have, like, there's one scene, and I can't remember which episode, where the ship shakes and the woman just sort of falls in the hallway as opposed to getting thrown because it doesn't shake at the right time.
Flops over.
So it just looks like she just dumps herself onto the ground.
Pretty great.
Yeah. So yeah, the episode has that, the implicit heterosexism of Mud's women, which is now made really explicit here with the you've got the love potion that inspires friendship between 2 men or 2 women and only generates like these erotic feelings between members of the opposite sex. So there's sort of that. Though I did hear someone else explain it differently, that it only magnifies what your actual desires are. So the reason, Kirk and Spock are very good friends, so they become very, very good friends. Mm-hmm. But that means, if that's true, then that means there is some that Spock actually had something for Nurse Chapel, but Nurse Chapel doesn't seem to have any reason. It's like, oh, that's surprising to me that you actually have feelings for me, and she doesn't seem to be equally gaga. So
it's
different.
It's a muddy.
Yeah,
it's clear as mud.
There is our next IDW comic.
Well, no, I was about to say, I'm looking at your notes here about the Ursanoid bears.
Yes.
Like that, I want to immerse myself in Ursanoid culture.
The heavy metal miners.
Yeah, exactly. They're mining for heavy metal. It's like those heavy metal comic books. It's like all these things that I think are just awesome. And I feel like they're just like these grimy dudes. Like they're just angry and like, fed up with it. And here's Mud, and he's just like selling some crap. And I don't know. I'm kind of.
Here's these wonderful, I guess, this is a trope of TOS, which sort of went into TAS, is that there's always miners. There's always somebody. There's a mining colony.
Digging
there's
something up.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that it's sort of also it's a little bit of a play on that earth mining, where it's like you only have more men than women, and for some reason, and that the women that do come through, it's like are in short supply. So if you have this, crystal that will allow you to woo that, get that person to like be attracted to you, you have the advantage. So.
Yeah, so keep an eye out for our Ursanoid comic book series coming to you.
Well, it's kind of interesting because I was talking with Larry Nemechek, and he was talking about some of the early notes for Journey to Babel. And Dorothy had written in the notes that the Tellarites were actually supposed to be more bear-like.
Instead of pig.
And so I look at that, and I think that the Ursanoids feel very much like kind of bear Tellarites. They're a little bit taller.
They're a little bit more blue collar because Tellarite. The only Tellarites we've really seen are kind of diplomats and.
Well, we saw in Enterprise. We saw that one.
Oh yeah, he was like a captain. Okay, so that's maybe that kind of throws my. They're just a more blue collar. Tellarite.
Well, at least the ones that we've seen, the Ursanoids. Yeah.
Just talking about it now, I'm a huge fan of the Ursanoids, guys. So yeah.
But, it would have been interesting, though, if the Tellarites were like that. I think that would have made the comment about the Salot seem a little odd because it's like, oh, they're like big teddy bears. Like, that's a lot of bears in one episode. If you've got the Tellarites that look like bears, Salots that are also big bears, that's just too much.
Well, maybe, we were talking about DC Comics before, too, in the multiverse. Maybe there's a whole Star Trek bear universe, and there's a little bit of crossover. I mean, we know species 8472 come from fluidic space, so maybe there's like bear space.
Yeah, so we're going to see some Ursanoid comic books, I guess, from us in the future.
It's going to be a very sort of gritty, almost like the Dark Knight Returns kind of Frank Miller, just real kind of raw. You're going to get a real look at Ursanoid culture that you don't get anywhere else in the Star Trek canon.
I think that would be everywhere else in the Star Trek canon.
I stand by what I said.
Yes. I don't know. Well, that's another question for somebody who reads the novels, I guess. Like, do we ever see these?
Where are my Ursanoid heads at? Yes. Holler at us on Twitter.
That's funny. So one of the things it was interesting. We've got so Mudd gets taken on board. He convinces Nurse Chapel, like in the spirit of scientific investigation, to basically try this drug. She's like, yeah, okay, it's not going to work, but whatever. You think she'd be smarter than that? You'd hope. And basically, he escapes because she's distracted. I think getting her drug stuff. Yes, and so you see him go up to this big computer, and he has, while she fainted. Oh, that's what it was. She fainted when she first tried the drug. He took her identity card, which we didn't know that they had, and then puts it up to the computer, and it changes. They basically take like a photo of him in a kind of like a photo booth type way and switches the picture. So it still says Christine Chapel, but it just has his photo on it. So I guess that allows him to get into the shuttle bay, which he goes to take the steal a shuttle, and then Christine is basically, it's like, I think more mad about it not working than anything, and he kidnaps her and takes her hostage. So they go down to this planet where we get eventually an epic battle with the rock monsters, complete with gratuitous barrel rolls to get away, which is like, how many people from Galaxy Quest watch this? It's very like Galaxy Quest, but you get Spock being basically crazy in love with Christine. It's like, we have to go after her, and very not Spock, which is fun. But I think the best part is when the potion starts to wear off, you get more than the amount that you were in love, basically being angry. So you got when Kirk has some sort of idea, Spock responds with like, "That's an outstandingly stupid idea."
Maybe we can distract them.
That is an outstandingly stupid idea.
Spock and Kirk, at each other's throats at the end. But
there's just a lot of stuff that just happens.
That's a good observation. It doesn't. There's a general plot, but then it's just sort of like
stuff happening.
Things will happen along the way.
Stuff's just happening.
I mean, we get the great, the dancing scene, which I thought was fun. And back on the mining planet, I did like they have a phaser, which apparently the phaser can create a giant trench, which it felt very much like Jayla's weapon from Beyond, where she puts up the big wall of whatever that plastic-y spray stuff out of her weapon. But it feels like there's a lot of disconnected scenes that are all sort of strung together with the fact they're just trying to get Christine back.
Yeah. I don't have much to add. It's not a great episode. It's just some stuff that happens in between the Ursanoids and that funny dancing and whatever else we like. It's okay. It's not great.
Space Control calling Quisp.
This is Quisp. Over.
An enormous mad ball of yarn is blocking all traffic in space.
Uh-oh. So it is.
Turn back.
Impossible! I must deliver this cargo of Quisp cereal to my pals on... Whoops!
It's got him.
A naughty problem. Fortunately, there's always time for a bowl of Quisp cereal.
Use your scrooch gun.
Nope. I'm using these knitting needles instead. Knit one, purl two, knit one, purl two, cast off, knit one, purl two, cast off, knit one, purl two.
What blinding speed! He's knitting up that mad ball of yarn faster than it can unravel. There it goes.
And in its place, a hand-knit necktie, 87 miles long.
Yay! A good yarn, but Quake is better.
Oh! Quisp is best. Get the point?
Quisp from Quaker.
When everybody starts, at one point the crystals that are remaining break, which is why we get the dancing transporter officer, is that it sort of breaks and goes into the air vent, and so everybody's affected by this love drug. So you have Scotty and Emrys basically making goo-goo eyes at each other, which is fun, and then they also are arguing at the end. So it would be interesting to see what other pairings that ended up happening that we didn't see.
I always assume that Emrys and Eric's,
Yeah.
Kind of two in the same, but
No, he was playing a lute or something like that.
He just seemed high.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, what's going on with
Yeah.
Anybody's tracking what's going on with Mud? He's just kind of...
but we did get the scene with McCoy.
Yeah.
Who was just like, hey, let me tell you how many times I saved Kirk and Spock and the Enterprise. I probably saved you.
It's, you'd think that after, all the spores and different gases and things that this crew's been exposed to, that, even though with a galaxy of different types of love drugs and, bio agents, that they'd have at least some sort of tolerance or be like, oh, no. We're all high as kites. We need to knock this off, Yeah,
they would,
it's
have
a trope.
some sort of, know that...
Right.
Yeah.
It's a trope at this point that, there's a new... people always say, forehead of the week when there's a different alien that comes up. This is the spore of the week.
That's true, and that did happen in TOS quite a bit. Yeah. Yeah, I don't... they have an interesting also sort of barrier to what they're doing is that it's also made for children's television. So it is a love drug thing, but it's also... There's only so far you can take some of the things that are happening.
It's not a love drug, it's like a like drug.
Yeah. It is very junior high.
I don't like you, I like you.
Yeah, exactly. We talked earlier about the drug doesn't make two men fall in love, supposedly, that we saw.
Just men and cats.
Just bestiality. So they're I don't know. Is bringing Mud back was if you could do it again or differently, what would be the? I mean, I guess it's kind of hard. You're bringing back a kind of inherently more adult character into something that's supposed to be aimed at everyone, basically. So it includes children.
The way you bring back Mud is that episode where Q comes back and he's powerless, and you're like, do we trust him? Because it's just more of the same crap with this guy when he shows up in this episode. So
they didn't trust him, at least, except Christine apparently was so crazy to get Spock to fall in love with her.
They didn't trust him, but if he showed up and he was just sort of really tail between his legs or just emasculated or coming from a different angle, I think that would just a little fresh Mud. This is stale Mud.
Well, I'm wondering if it's also, we live in the world of endless reruns where we've seen these episodes a million times. We like something fresher. I think back then this is almost I'd love to see the same thing again, but slightly different. Which is, I almost feel like a lot of Star Trek fans, judging by the commentary on Discovery, that Star Trek fans want the same thing over and over again, just tweaked. just a bit.
Yeah, that's why it's kind of, interesting to see people who kind of got down on Voyager and Enterprise for being more of the same. It's like, well, you can't really fault them for giving, what ostensibly you want. So it's interesting in that regard.
And Mission New York, the CBS-run Star Trek Con,
it's currently wrapping up.
Yes,
right
it's
now.
currently wrapping up as we record this. And I believe it was Nicholas Meyer who commented at the Discovery panel that was essentially like, art is not a democracy. He didn't say it exactly like that, but it's like fans don't know what they want, and it's up to us to tell them what our viewpoint is. And it's sort of, and if you do listen to fans, the kind of the analogy that I always use is General Motors. I used to work on the General Motors account when I graphic design. They created the Aztec, which was this really hideous-looking car that was created from focus groups. And it lasted about a year and went out of production because it was awful. Because they gave people what they wanted, which apparently they didn't. Because they don't know what they want.
Or the Aztec came with a free tent. Like a tent in the back.
It may have. I'm trying to remember. But yeah, it was like 900 cup holders and, all that. It was a lot of little details and stuff. But it looked like a weird box.
Like a car that Homer Simpson designed.
Yeah. It wasn't, it's not literally square like those cubes or whatever, which is kind of cool looking.
The Scion.
Yeah. This was just like, ugh. So,
well, this has been Saturday Morning Pontiac Aztec.
It's amazing how you think of like the people who might be listening to this but don't know what a Pontiac is. It's been that long.
Wow. Yeah, you're right.
So, So where was this going? Sorry. What you might be sensing from us that there's not a lot of content in this episode because Harry Mudd's sort of been, no pun intended, mined quite a bit as far as conversation goes. There's obviously the problematic kind of, sexism that's built into this because the 2 episodes that preceded this were basically about prostitution and just being kind of lecherously gross about
that's
slave robots.
That's Mudd. I mean... Yeah. But I feel like if we were to have a podcast about another one of my favorite shows, which is The Wacky Races, Hanna-Barbera, there's not a lot, to get out of it. It's a formula, and you hit these certain rhythms, and you see these certain images, and you get these certain sounds and voices, and that's the appeal of it. So, I mean, the fact that it's Star Trek gives you something to work with, the fact that we've been able to draw a lot of conversation about a lot of weird stuff, but for the most part, these cartoons were not, designed. They were designed to go down with a bowl of Quisp cereal. You know what I mean? So it's not, sometimes you'll get a real heavy, dense episode, and sometimes you get Mudd's passion. So I wouldn't fault the conversation for any lack of trying. It's, you take what you can get. So, I mean, the fact that we got a lot of Ursanoid chit chat, I think speaks a lot to what this episode has to offer.
And maybe a little bit of information that people didn't know about what the Tellarites were originally kind of meant to be like.
Canon.
So yeah, I actually kind of talking about some of the Trek tech and species. We obviously talked about the Ursanoids to the point where I don't think we could talk about it anymore.
Not at least until the comic book's released. Then
yes.
We'll have our Q&A episode.
Right.
Well, I think just throwing out some titles here. The Passion of the Fur, deep mine, fur ball. I don't what? Well, it's early. It's still early in the early Ursa. We still got to get our other shore leave.
Ursanoid minor.
Oh, there we go. Like it's like Ursa Minor. It's a little double entendre. This is for the highbrow Star Trek comic book weirdos out there.
Well, we have to have a little Rigelian hypnoid as a. So yeah, I guess the hypnoid comes from Rigel, which is interesting because a lot of things come from Rigel. It seems like. So it was this illusion casting lizard-like creature that Harry Mudd used to deceive his potential customers. And then we had the rock creatures, which the information that I've been finding says that they were non-sentient beings. Oh. But it seemed like that Kirk used the remaining crystals to throw at them. If they weren't sentient, wouldn't that kind of not do anything to them? I mean, don't you have to be sentient to have love? Or maybe it just made them annoyed or something. I don't know.
The spectrum of rock emotions is beyond what us humans can comprehend. So I think that's That's where we can leave that.
Also, I would imagine their metabolism or whatever, that would do absolutely nothing to them because it's so small.
Yeah, they...
but I don't know. Maybe not.
They eat 3 square rocks a day, and they have their own rock metabolism.
So they were over 100 feet long, and they appeared like rocky mounds when at rest, and they're very resistant to phaser fire. And speaking of phasers, when they went to the planet, they actually drew the Type 2 phasers, which were the ones that all the landing parties took for, when they're on like when they were anticipating an unknown situation or something that was more dangerous than when they would take just their regular Type 1 hand phasers.
Well,
that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I agree. It's you never know what you're gonna get when you get a little bit of mud, a little bit of Ursa.
But that's what I really like about the animated series, that they did think about that, where they could have just drawn the same phaser over and over again. They actually drew a different type of phaser, which I thought was kind of cool. We had the heavy shuttlecraft that Harry Mudd and Nurse Chapel took off in. So it's sort of more of a swoopy version almost of the Galileo. And if you're seeing the interior of the hangar bay, at the very far right, there is this sort of the scout ship that is it's got a rounded bubble top. It sort of looks like a compact, makeup compact that can fly. It was designed for the animated series, but it was never used in any of the episodes. So it sort of looked kind of like a flying disc almost, with a little bit of an edge around it. So it didn't seem to have warp nacelles. It just was sort of
flying
there.
Saucer.
Yeah, basically. So that was kind of interesting. With Gene Roddenberry's aversion to flying saucers, that was at the time when Star Trek first was formed, that was sort of the what they the saucer shaped was what ships were, spaceships that weren't rockets. So it's possible that he saw the drawing and was just like, no, we're not going to use that.
Maybe we take a saucer, take a couple rockets, smush them together, see where it goes. That's because Gene Roddenberry clearly sounds like a New York pizza guy. So
with his Star Trekulator.
The Star Trekulator.
Activate the Star Trekulator. Check.
Now you can play Star Trek with a Star Trekulator, a digital calculator that never makes a mistake. Batteries not included.
Bloopers, there was a couple visual errors where the one scene showed Nurse Chapel wearing like a black collar on her uniform, which she doesn't have. And another visual error was Spock was shown with his insignia on the wrong side of his tunic. So that happens frequently, actually. It's like that happened with Ann Nored in
Survivor.
Yes, Survivor. Thank you.
How did I pull that out? Like,
wow.
I'm getting good.
Yeah. So I think that kind of wraps up the conversation of Mudd's passion. So final thoughts?
No, it's been great talking about Mudd's Ursanoids.
Yes.
That's it's fine. It's a fine episode. There's some fun moments. There's a really cool weird species that as you can tell, I'm now thoroughly obsessed with, and I'm currently writing fiction about in my head. No, it's anything Star Trekky that's not completely diabolically disastrous, which I don't think this qualifies as. It's good. It's good by me. It's good watching.
This feels like, I don't know, kind of like when TNG hit its stride, and then there was sort of like a couple of, they're just like, they're good. They're just there. It feels like we're in that point of TAS where it's not like dramatically horrible or dramatically great. It just sort of is. But I do, I think because it has my favorite scene of like all of the animated series. I think it's just that random cutaway to the two people dancing in the transporter room. The comedic timing on it was perfect. So I really enjoyed that.
They kind of nailed it.
Yep.
It's been fun talking about Ursanoids and nothing but Ursanoids for the past however long we've been doing this. But that's not the only thing we've been talking about this week on Trek FM. Here's a peek at some of the other things that we've been talking about elsewhere on the network.
Previously on Trek.fm. To the journey!
Some races are like Talaxians. We really don't know how long they've kind of been around.
Shar!
What?
I just had a great idea. I need to calm myself down. I need some ice. I need some ice.
Okay. Rest your head.
Okay.
Easy. In
All right.
and out.
Warp 5.
What's your favorite episode of Enterprise?
I usually say Strange New World. The first part of Strange New World just reminds me so much of being a kid and growing up in southeastern Oklahoma and the mountains and the woods. And I just imagine what it would be like to go camping on an alien planet.
Meta Treks.
After 150 years of sitting around in the mud, that's got to be one relaxed symbiont.
But there again, it shows that, at least for the symbiote on Trill, that there's life beyond the mud.
Life beyond the mud. I love it.
And that's what else is happening on Trek.fm.
So check out the shows and get in on the daily Trek Talk. You'll find them at iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spreaker, and the Windows Podcast Directory for Xbox and Zune. You can visit our website at trek.fm and view our podcast directory and stream all of our shows right from the website. We'd also like to invite you to leave us a rating and review on iTunes. Not only does it help us know how we're doing, it also helps other people find the show. Before we go, I'd like to thank our patrons, Mike Bovia, Eric Extreme, and Joo Kim. Thank you so much for your support. And if you want to become an associate producer of a Trek FM show, all you need to do is become a patron of the network at the $25 or more level. Go to patreon.com/trekfm and find out how you can become part of the team. That's patreon.com/trekfm. So when you are not, creating Ursanoid fan fiction, Ursanoid, T-shirts, I'm assuming that there's like some sort of Ursanoid breakfast cereal in the works. Where can we find you?
You can find me at the Ursanoid Conference on Ursanoid FM. You can find me on Twitter at dr0sin. The Ursanoid cereal is in the works. It's kind of like Honey Crisp, but I don't know, more Ursanoidy.
Yeah, you could have your bear.
Exactly. So it's just a little different.
Yes. And I am training to be a Rigelian hypnoid, so I can change my appearance to be anything I want. No, you can find me at Twitter. Username is GeekFilter. And you can find me on the Babel Conference, which is Trek FM's listener Facebook group. And it's a private group, but just message us and we'll make sure that you're not a Rigelian hypnoid, and then we'll let you in.
And if you're trying to get to the Ursanoid Conference, they'll let you know, no, this is the Babel Conference. You're looking for Ursanoid FM.
We have to create that now. I've always thought that eventually we'd have a T-shirt for Saturday Morning Trek. I've just never designed one because it's like, I don't know. Maybe our thing will be if we do Bridge Mates, we'll have the fighting Ursanoid.
And it's like...
Because I didn't want to do something like the Giant Spocks or the Tribbles or something that's like really...
Well, that's a more deep cut. Yeah. And it's like the fighting Ursanoid. It makes me think of like the Fighting Irish, with that famous logo.
Yeah.
So it'd be like that, but like the bear.
Yeah. So...
Get ready for the fighting Ursanoids.
Yes. All right, so there's mud everywhere in this den, like literally from our feet and from this episode.
Stanley Steamer is going to come and steam out the shag carpet. We're going to get some more lemon glow for the wood paneling on the den. So we're going to go grab a couple McDLTs or whatever 70s food. Was big
food sticks.
Food sticks. We're going to grab a couple food sticks and go watch McMillan and Wife.
Remember, there is an animated Ursanoid.
I've saved just about everybody on this here ship. If the Enterprise had a heart, I'd save her too. Now, let's talk about your heart, my dear.